Hello everyone. Today's topic for discussion is regulation of blood glucose. So far we have learned regarding the chemistry of carbohydrate, and even we have learned regarding the digestion absorption of carbohydrate and regarding the metabolism of carbohydrate. So ultimately we know that the dietary carbohydrate is broken down into smaller molecules like glucose, fructose, galactose, etc., which will be absorbed from the intestine and will be utilized by the body cells, and the energy will be getting maintained. So now we have to learn how the blood glucose is getting maintained or regulated. So in this topic we will be discussing what is the normal plasma glucose, then factors which maintaining the blood glucose, then postprandial regulation and regulation during fed state, and that is the meaning of postprandial, and regulation during fasting, and the clinical aspect of this topic. Okay, so what is the meaning of glucose homeostasis? So that is like it is a maintenance of blood glucose level within the normal range. So we should know the normal range. It is, if you are considering the fasting blood sugar level, it is always should be between 70 to 100 milligram per deciliter. Theoretically, actually in textbook and all, we can say it is 70 to 110 milligram per deciliter. But nowadays that 110 is reduced as 100 mg per deciliter, because according to Indian system, the 100 above blood glucose itself is a risk factor to develop the diabetes mellitus. Now the normal blood glucose fasting, I said it is 70 to 110, and postprandial blood glucose level is 120 to 140 milligram per deciliter. Then above and below the normal range, that is usually considered as abnormal level of blood glucose. So we know that if the blood glucose level below the normal range, that condition is known as hypoglycemia. So usually if the blood glucose below 70 milligram per deciliter, that is known as hypoglycemia. If it is above 110, that is known as hyperglycemia for fasting blood sugar. For postprandial above 140 milligram per deciliter, that is known as hyperglycemia. So actually for diagnosing diabetes mellitus, usually we consider if the fasting blood sugar level goes more than 126 mg per deciliter, we can consider it as a hyperglycemic condition or diabetes mellitus. Now, the factors maintaining blood glucose are multiple. Like we know that to increase the blood sugar level, the main thing is that after the food, so after food, what will happen? After digestion and absorption, the blood glucose level getting highly elevated, and in fasting state, we know that either due to glycogenolysis or gluconeogenesis. Ultimately that leads to the increase in blood sugar level. So these are the factors which increasing blood sugar level, and to decrease the blood sugar level, our body has its own mechanism. After postprandial state, the glucose will be uptake by almost all the cells, and which will be undergoing oxidation to maintain the energy or to yield the energy, or the excess glucose will be getting stored as glycogen and will be stored in muscle and adipose, muscle and liver cells. Not adipose tissue, it is in muscle and liver cells. So that procedure is known as glycogenesis, that is the synthesis of glycogen. Then blood glucose, the excess level even can be converted into fat. That is, the excess glucose can be, we know the theory that excess glucose can be converted to fat and can be stored in adipose tissue in the form of triacyl glycerol. Okay, now how to do the homeostasis of blood glucose? When the blood glucose level get lowered, that is during postprandial state, alpha cells will be releasing the hormone glucagon, and glucagon will stimulate all the key enzymes of glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis, and that is responsible to release the glucose from liver to the blood, and there can be increase in blood sugar level. Similarly, high blood glucose level, the increase in blood glucose level can cause the release of beta cells. Beta cells may release insulin, and this insulin will be stimulating all the hormones, key hormones like key hormones of glycolysis, then glycogenesis, then lipid synthesis, etc., and thereby which can decreases the blood glucose level. Now, the factors which involving the homeostasis of blood glucose, it is mainly done by three mechanisms: the metabolic process, then the major one, the involvement of hormones, then renal mechanism. Okay, let's go in detail. The fundamental regulatory mechanism actually, as blood sugar tends to increase, I have already explained, there will be increased synthesis of insulin from beta cells of pancreas, and insulin will stimulate glycogenesis. Initially glycolysis will be accelerated, then glycogenesis is accelerated, and if the blood sugar tends to decrease, there will be decreased secretion of insulin and more secretion of glucocorticoids, glucagon, growth hormone, etc. This causes increased production of glucose mainly through gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis, and it leads to decreased utilization of glucose by tissues. Okay, now let's go ahead with the regulation of blood sugar under various headings. The first one, blood glucose regulation during well-fed state. What do you mean by well-fed state? That is, if we are having adequate food, what happens after, if you are consuming a proper carbohydrate diet or after consuming food, what will happen? What will happen immediately after the body will undergoing the metabolisms and all, digestion, absorption will happen, there will be a rise in blood glucose level, isn't it? So that causes stimulation of synthesis of, release of insulin from the pancreas, beta cells of pancreas, and this insulin through the portal vein, it reaches to liver, even the glucose it reaches to liver, and all the metabolic pathways will be getting increased. Not only liver, almost all the peripheral tissues can utilize the blood glucose. Okay, so the main role is that immediately glucose undergoing oxidation to pyruvic acid, and it undergoing, this pyruvate can be converted into acetyl-CoA, acetyl-CoA can be entered into TCA cycle, so and so, and the energy production. That is the main aim. And also you can see what will happen, the excess carbohydrate can be converted into fat, that is the acetyl-CoA can be converted into fat and can be stored in as adipose tissue. Okay, then in glucose, this glucose, the blood glucose can be utilized by muscle cells also for the energy purpose. And also what will happen, the blood glucose will be reaches to brain cells also, and can be utilized by the brain cells for the energy purpose. And the excess glucose will be getting stored by liver itself in the form of glycogen, and also in muscle cells also glycogen is getting stored. And we know that during anaerobic glycolysis, what will happen, the glucose will be converted into lactate, and also in RBC what will happen, glucose will be converted into lactate, and this lactate can be act as a substrate for the gluconeogenesis, that is different thing. So these all are the changes which occurs during well-fed state. Now, blood glucose regulation during postprandial state, opposite of these things, isn't it? So what will happen in postprandial state, there is no availability of blood glucose through the diet. So what will happen, there will be decreased secretion of insulin from beta cells. Automatically what will happen, more secretion of glucagon from the alpha cells of pancreas. This will reach us to portal vein and reaches to the liver. What will happen, all the metabolism which is contributing for the synthesis of glucose will be getting activated by this glucagon and also other hormones. So initially glycogenolysis occurs around 8 to 12 hours. The glycogenolysis will helps to maintain the blood glucose level. Glycogen undergoing breakdown to form glucose, that is glycogenolysis. So glucagon will stimulate glycogen phosphorylase enzyme and it leads to glycogenolysis. Clear? Then the non-carbohydrate substrates like lactate, pyruvate, then glucogenic amino acid which is releasing from the muscles. All these will be helping as a substrate for the gluconeogenesis. Glucagon will stimulate 4 key enzymes of gluconeogenesis like pyruvate carboxylase, phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase, then our glucose 6-phosphatase and fructose 1,6-phosphatase. These 4 are the key enzymes of gluconeogenesis. All these will contribute for the synthesis of glucose from the non-carbohydrate substrates. Okay, in this way glucose is synthesized through glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis, etc. And this blood glucose which is synthesized through this pathway will be utilized by the brain cells and the extrahepatic tissues like adipose tissue, then RBC, etc. Okay, this is how blood glucose regulation occurs during postprandial state. Okay, now next is like this figure which explaining the regulation of blood glucose in a diagrammatic representation. I think no need to include this diagram. We'll have a good diagram later. Okay, so in this figure which explain what all I have explained now is given in a single diagram. So you can see plasma glucose, that is 70 to 110 milligram per deciliter fasting, postprandial less than 140 milligram per deciliter. How this is getting maintained during fed state and fasting state. Fed state means hypoglycemic hormones will be coming into action, that is the factors which helps to remove blood glucose from blood. Mainly the mechanism already explained. Under the influence of insulin, glycolysis in almost all the cells and TCA in almost all the cells, and glucose ultimately converted into carbon dioxide and water and energy is produced. Excess will be converted into glycogen in liver and will be deposited or stored in liver and muscle. Then excess glucose even can be converted into fat, lipogenesis, synthesis of fatty acid and fat deposit. This occurs during well-fed state. It is done under the influence of the hormone insulin. Insulin is the hypoglycemic hormone. Then the hyperglycemic factors which helps to increase the blood sugar level, that occurs during fasting state. What all we have already explained, the same thing, absorption from GIT, then glycogenolysis in liver, then gluconeogenesis in liver, then other hyperglycemic hormones like glucagon. Other than that, adrenaline, corticosteroids, growth hormone, ACTH, thyroxine, all these will be contributing to increase the blood sugar level by various mechanisms. Okay. Okay, this figure which shows a simple representation of role of hormones. So high blood glucose level, what will happen? Which gives signal to release hypoglycemic hormone insulin, and insulin causes lowering of blood sugar. When low blood sugar level occurs, that gives the signals to release hyperglycemic hormones, glucagon and other hyperglycemic hormone, that is responsible to increase the blood glucose level through various metabolism. Role of insulin alone. So what all the metabolism getting activated and what all the metabolism getting inhibited. So the positive sign represented in a green circle, that shows the positive effect of insulin, or the insulin which activate these metabolism. For example, uptake of glucose in muscles and adipose cells, then glycolysis, then protein synthesis, glycogen synthesis, lipogenesis. So being an anabolic hormone, the insulin which leads to all this metabolism getting activated, whereas insulin inhibits the key enzymes of metabolisms like lipolysis, then gluconeogenesis, then protein catabolism and glycogen breakdown. This table which explains how various metabolism getting activated or inhibited by various hormones during fed state and fasting state. For example, if you are considering the action, mainly the action of insulin on the particular enzyme, what all the effect? So for example, if you are considering the carbohydrate metabolism, insulin, which causes the stimulation of all three glycolytic key enzymes like glucokinase, phosphofructokinase, pyruvate kinase, which is getting stimulated by insulin, and glycolysis is favored. Whereas it causes inhibition of all four key gluconeogenetic enzymes like pyruvate carboxylase, phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase, fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase and glucose 6-phosphatase, and inhibiting this gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis will be getting depressed. And also insulin can activate glycogen synthase enzyme, which is the key enzyme of glycogenesis, and inactivate the key enzyme of glycogen phosphorylase enzyme. Then all these things causes what will happen? All these will lead to hypoglycemia by various mechanism. Whereas insulin in lipid metabolism, it causes stimulation of glycerol kinase and acetyl-CoA carboxylase enzyme so that it favors lipogenesis, favors triacylglycerol synthesis and this fatty acid synthesis. So glucose is utilized for lipogenesis, glucose lowered and decreased ketogenesis. So at the same time, insulin inhibits hormone sensitive lipase enzyme and can cause inhibition of lipolysis, and also it can stimulate HMG-CoA reductase enzyme, which is a key enzyme of lipid metabolism or cholesterol metabolism, and cholesterol synthesis can be increased. So the excess glucose will be converted into lipid in the form of either triacylglycerol, then cholesterol and fatty acid, and it is stimulated by insulin by stimulating the key enzyme of these lipid synthesis enzymes. And also the action of insulin on protein metabolism. Protein metabolism like transaminases and OTC, ornithine transcarbamylase enzyme, are inhibited by insulin so that the catabolism is getting inhibited, and it stimulates RNA polymerase and ribosome assembly so that protein synthesis is getting favored. So that is a general anabolic reactions done with insulin. Now, hyperglycemic hormones. So we have explained the glucagon action in detail. In addition to that, the other hyperglycemic hormones are adrenaline, glucocorticoids, ACTH, growth hormone, and thyroxine. All these are anti-insulin hormones. That means the effect is that the action of these hyperglycemic hormones are antagonistic to insulin hormonal action. So first regarding glucagon, so far what all we have discussed, that means the glucagon action opposite that of insulin, overall action increases blood glucose by promoting glycogenolysis, depressing glycogen synthesis, then inhibits glycolysis and enhance gluconeogenesis. Next, adrenaline. It is secreted by adrenal medulla. It also causes increase in blood sugar level by promoting glycogenolysis and enhancing gluconeogenesis, and also it has a specific action like it favors uptake of amino acids. So this is the overall summary of regulation of blood sugar level. Normal blood glucose concentration is getting maintained by the concurrent action of insulin and glucagon during fed state and fasting state. Now the third metabolism or third mechanism by which the blood glucose is getting regulated, that is renal regulation. So far we have explained the hormonal regulation and the metabolic regulation. Now the renal regulation. To understand the renal regulation, you should understand what is the tubular maximum and the renal threshold of blood glucose. So the renal threshold of blood glucose is that 180 milligram per deciliter, and the tubular maximum is 350 milligram per minute. So usually glucose, the amount of glucose which appears in urine is negligible. Negligible means such a low amount that which is not detectable by the normal routine test. So when the blood glucose level goes above the renal threshold, that is more than 180 milligram per deciliter, or it crosses the tubular maximum, that is greater than 350 mg per minute, what will happen? The glucose will excreted through the urine, that is known as glycosuria. In that way also blood glucose level can be maintained. So when there is severe hyperglycemia, the excess level can be excreted through the urine, that is known as glycosuria. And in detail about the renal mechanism, when blood glucose increases to high levels, kidney exerts a regulatory effect. When glucose is continuously filtered by the glomeruli, and it is normally reabsorbed completely in tubules. That is why I said there is a very negligible amount only used to excrete through the urine. Almost every amount of glucose is getting reabsorbed from the kidney tubules. But blood glucose level increased greater than 180 mg per deciliter, what will happen? The complete tubular reabsorption does not occur. So the extra amount appears in urine or excreted through the urine, that leads to glycosuria. It is called renal threshold value of glucose. And the definition of glycosuria, glycosuria is not representing only the excretion of glucose. Any carbohydrate substances when excreting through the urine, that condition is known as glycosuria. Normal urine contains 0.05 gram per deciliter of sugar, which cannot be detected by the Benedict test. But certain situations, what will happen? The excess glucose will be excreted through the urine. That condition is known as glycosuria. Generally is called as sugar in urine, that is glycosuria. It can be different type: alimentary glycosuria, renal glycosuria, and diabetic glycosuria. Blood glucose, estimation of blood glucose and its clinical aspect. So the estimation of blood glucose is the key to diagnose diabetes mellitus, or key to understand the blood glucose level. How to interpret the value of blood glucose? Before that, how to do the test? The blood is collected using an anticoagulant, potassium oxalate, and an inhibitor of glycolysis, that is sodium fluoride. This is a key point. Why to add sodium fluoride in vacutainer before collecting blood for the estimation of blood glucose is that this fluoride ion can inhibit the enzyme enolase. Enolase is the one of the glycolytic enzyme. So fluoride causes inhibition of enolase enzyme by displacing magnesium mineral, because magnesium is a cofactor required to activate enolase enzyme. When magnesium is displaced by fluoride, the activity of enolase does not occur, so that the glycolysis will be getting inhibited. So if you are not adding this fluoride to the vacutainer, what will happen? The live cells of RBC, our live cells of blood, will be getting utilized this glucose, and we will get a false negative value of blood glucose. That is why it is mandatory to add fluoride to the vacutainer before estimating blood glucose. The method to estimate blood glucose, there are so many methods. The method of choice is glucose oxidase method, and also one more important method is that is hexokinase method. Hexokinase method. Now the normal values already discussed. The terminology like fasting plasma glucose, which is known as FBS or FPG. Fasting blood glucose is taken after at least 8 hours of fasting. 8 to 12 hours we suggest, 8 hours of minimum fasting. Random means test done any time of day without regard to the time since last meal. Then postprandial means the test done about 2 hours after a good meal. That is the meaning of postprandial blood glucose. So the normal values, fasting is 70 to 110 milligram per deciliter, random less than 140 milligram per deciliter, postprandial up to 140 milligram per deciliter. Random can be between 70 to 140 milligram per deciliter, postprandial usually between 90 to 140 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so it is given in millimole also. For 4 to 6.1 millimole per liter is normal fasting blood sugar. less than 7.8 millimole per liter random and 7.8 millimole per liter postprandial blood sugar level. And another terminologies in this topic is hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia. So hyperglycemia, increase in blood sugar, that is known as hyperglycemia. Hypoglycemia means decrease in blood sugar level, that is known as hypoglycemia. So the causes for hyperglycemia are diabetes mellitus, then hyperactivity of anterior pituitary and adrenal cortex, hyperthyroidism and pancreatitis. These are the major causes for hyperglycemia. Hypoglycemia usually can occur due to over usage of insulin, then hypopituitarism, hyperinsulinism, hypothyroidism, adrenal cortical hyperfunction such as in Addison disease, and in decreased absorption like sprue and celiac disease. Okay, thank you all. This is all about the regulation of blood sugar. Thank you.